Hey, what's up? I'm Norris and welcome back to another sew along. Now, remember, whenever you see me, just know your girl Mimi G is busy and I'm filling in to work out her new Simplicity pattern, which is 3011, the jumpsuit. Now, if you're new to sewing, I just want to ease back into it. You can always visit sewingacademy.com. Once you get to the site, you can go ahead and take advantage of our free trial. Okay, now let's get started. Okay, so again, like I said, today we're working on Mimi G's latest Simplicity pattern, which is S3011. And it is a jumpsuit. Now this is a nice casual streetwear type of vibe. It has very interesting style lines and also with a nice zipper in the middle and also elastic around the waist. So if you look to the back, you have other fabric suggestions across the top. You have the notions. You'll need at least one 28-inch medium weight zipper and then also 3 7/8 yards of 3/8 of an inch elastic. All right, so once you look at the size, always go down to the finished garment measurements so you can see what that finished garment will be measured so you can kind of adjust to whatever size you want to cut out. Now let's go through all the pattern pieces. Okay, so you're gonna need pattern piece number 1. This is the front yoke. You want to cut 2 of these out of your fabric. Pattern piece number 3, this is your back yoke. You want to cut 1 of these on the fold out of your fabric. Pattern piece number 6, this is the back casing. You want to cut 1 of these on the fold here. Pattern piece number 5, this is the front casing. You want to cut 2 of these out of fabric. Pattern piece number 14, this is the sleeve band. You want to cut 2 of these out of your fabric. Pattern piece number 12, you want to cut 1 of these out of your fabric, and this is the underlap. Pattern piece number 9, now you want to cut 4 of these out of fabric, and this is your pocket. Pattern piece number 11, this is your collar. You want to cut 2 out of fabric on the fold, which is here, and then 1 on the fold of interfacing. Pattern piece number 13, this is your front facing. You want to cut 2 of these out of your fabric and 2 out of interfacing. Pattern piece number 2, now this is your bodice front. You want to cut 2 of these out of your fabric. Pattern piece number 4, this is your bodice back. You want to cut 2 of these out of your fabric. Now this is the back piece of your pant. You want to cut 2 of these out of fabric. Then pattern piece number 7, this is your front pant. You want to cut 2 of these out of your fabric. And then last but not least, we have pattern piece number 10. Now you don't need to cut anything out of this. This is just your guide for your elastic. Okay, so once you cut all of your fabric and then also interface the proper pieces, we can begin order of construction. Okay, first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna grab your front bodice and then also your front yoke. And we're right sides facing. We're just going to flip them like this. There should be 2 notches and we're going to pin across the top. Okay, now let's head to the machine. We're going to stitch all the way across using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, now you can head to your serger if you have one and clean this seam, or you can use picking shears or use a zigzag stitch just to clean up the inside of your seams. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, we have our yoke and our front bodice connected. And then I cleaned up my seam with a serge, as you can see, and I pressed that seam up. And then now we're just gonna head up to the machine and we're going to top stitch all the way across on the yoke side, about 1/4 inch away from the seam. Okay, so you want to put your other front and also front yoke together the same exact way. Okay, so moving along, we have our back bodice. Now there should be 3 notches just to indicate where that back seam is. So we're right sides facing. We're going to line it up where that back seam is, and we're going to pin along that back seam. Okay, so just head to the machine and you're just going to do a straight stitch connecting these together using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Do that, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so moving right along, as you can see, we have the back bodice connected, and the directions tell you that you can press that seam open, but it leaves the edges of the seam raw, so you can serge that first, or you can just serge them together like I did and just press it. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to take our back yoke, and then we're going to match it up with the top of the back bodice, and there should be a double notch on both sides for you to match up and then pin all the way along both sides. Okay, so now let's head to the machine. We're going to stitch, start on one end and going all the way across using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we went ahead and attached our back yoke to our back bodice, and also I went ahead and cleaned off my seams and pressed those up. Now we're going to head back to the machine and we're going to top stitch on the facing side, a 1/4 inch away from that seam. Okay, so now that we're back from the machine, I went ahead and did that top stitching on that back yoke. We're going to go ahead and take one of your front pieces and we're going to lay them over the back and align them at the shoulder and then also the side seam, and we're going to pin. Now when you pin, especially up here at the top, you want to make sure that both of these seams where that top stitching is matched up perfectly. Okay, so now we're going to head to the machine. We're going to stitch across the shoulder and then also along the side seam using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, we're back from the machine. As you can see, now we have a full-on sleeve because we connected the shoulders in that side seam. Now next, we're going to go ahead and work on the cuff. So you just want to grab one of your cuffs, as you can see right here, and with right sides facing, we're going to head to the machine and we're going to stitch across this end here using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Let me go put up a couple of pins. Now go ahead and press this seam open. Okay, so we're back from the machine. That seam is pressed, and now we're going to turn it wrong sides facing each other. You'll have the outside on the right side. And then now we're going to take this seam and we're going to put it on that side seam on the inside. So we're going to take the cuff and just put it around the sleeve. Then once you match up that seam of the cuff with the side seam of the sleeve, you want to go ahead and pin. And then now we're just going to just expand it a bit so we can even distribute like this. And then once you do that, you can go ahead and pin. So now we're going to head to the machine. We're going to stitch all the way around using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now when we stitch, you want to pull a little bit like that, just so we can get the stitch evenly distributed all the way around. And now you can go ahead and serge off the rest of your seam. Now I went ahead and serged the rest of my seam to get it clean on the inside. And you want to do the other cuff and sleeve the same exact way. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and work on our front and back casing. Now this is the back casing. You want the notches towards the bottom. And with right sides facing, you want to grab the front casing with that notch towards the front on the bottom here. You want that face down as well, and there should be a notch on the side, and you match it up with the back casing notch and pin. Okay, so head to the machine. We're going to stitch both sides of these down, come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, I went ahead and did a serge just across the top, just to have it clean on the top, on the inside of the garment. And then also I serged that seam, just cut it down. You can trim it down a little bit, but I just serged it. And then now what we're gonna do is we're gonna match up those notches with the notches on the bottom of the bodice. So we're just going to put the wrong side to the wrong side of the front and back bodice. And then I'm just going to pin across the bottom. And then also I'm going to pin on the front across the top. Okay? You want to make sure your seams are matching. Okay, so this is how it looks on the wrong side, but you're looking at the right side of the casing. And then on the outside, this is what it looks like. And also you can take your front casing pattern and put it over the top and make sure you put it towards the end of the fabric right there. And you have these stitching lines. Now, I went ahead and just did the bottom and then also the top. I know that the one in the middle is a 1/2 inch from both sides. So once I do my first one, I can just go a 1/2 inch from that one, and I'll know that I'm dead in the center. Okay, so we're going to head to the machine and create all of the casing across the bottom of the bodice. I'm going to start at the top and go all the way through, all the way down, and then also I'm going to go in the middle, which is a 1/2 inch from the first one, and then I'm going to create that last one across the bottom. Okay, so let's head to the machine and do all of our stitching lines. Okay, also before we head to the machine, we have 2 notches across the bottom, one here as you can see, and then we have the other one right here. So we're going to do 2 rows of basting stitches, and we're going to gather in between these 2 notches. Okay. Okay, so you want to go ahead and continue to do your other 2. I didn't do the line for the mines in the middle. I just know it's a 1/2 inch. So do the one that's here in the center and then do the last one the same exact way. Okay, now you want to switch to a basting stitch, and we're going to do 2 rows of basting stitches so we can do gathering from the notch here to the notch that's at the center front, well, close to the center front. So I'm about 3/8 of an inch from the edge. Remember to back stitch at the beginning, but not at the end. Then now we're going to do one more, a 1/4 inch away from that first one. And then once you do the other side, this side, you want to do the other side the same way. And then you're just going to just pull and just gather it just a little bit. Now this will make a lot more sense once we start attaching the pants to the bodice. Okay. Okay, moving along, I just grabbed one of my back pieces. Now it doesn't matter if you have your front or back right now because we're just doing our pin tuck. So you want to fold it in half with wrong sides of touching, which means the outside you can see it. And then you just want to press right where your folding line is across the center of your pant piece, whether it's the front or the back, because we're doing all 4 pieces, both of the fronts and then both of the backs. And then now, since you give it a good press, I pinned it so it won't shift while I'm sewing. So now we're just going to do an edge stitch all the way across where that fold is, down to the bottom of the hem. Okay, now I've already done my other pieces, as you can see, the same exact way. Now let's head to the machine and let's stitch all of them to create that pin tuck. Okay, so now you want to do the remaining other 3 pieces of your pant pieces the same exact way. Okay, we're back from the machine. We did the pin tuck. As you can see, it makes a permanent crease all the way down. And then also too, if you look here on the front piece, you want to go ahead and follow your stitching line that you should have transferred the markings of. You want to go ahead and do a stitch here, pivot at the dot, and then down to the center front. Okay, so now we're going to do next, you want to grab one of your back pieces, right sides facing, and we're going to align it at the inside seam and go ahead and pin. There should be a notch there. Now that we have it all pinned, we're going to head to the machine and we're going to stitch all the way across the inside seam using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so moving right along, as you can see, we have the back and also the front attached at the side seam, as you can see right here. And then now what we're going to do is I'm just going to take the other one, because you want to do the other one the same exact way, and I'm just going to match them up right at the center seam here, just to make sure they're even. And then I'm going to continue pinning. Got some notches right here. And then right here, you want to pin right there where that dot is, especially where right there where we got that stitching. So we're going to start right here at that dot, right where you pivoted, where the stitching is, and we're going to stitch all the way, going through and up to the back using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we have the dot here, and then you see that stitching line. Now, if you go all the way to the dot, you're gonna be 7/8 of an inch away. That's a lot. That's farther. So you want to be at 5/8 of an inch, but you want to still be aligned up where that dot is. That's why we have that horizontal stitching line here. Okay, so 5/8 of an inch, but still aligned up where that dot is. We're going to stitch. So again, I just want to show you that because of this cutout here, your 5/8 of an inch is going to be closer this way than where the actual dot is. But we still aligned up where the dot is supposed to be. Okay, so now that we're back from the machine, now this is the front. I'm going to go ahead and cut to that dot where that stitching is, but not through the stitching, okay? I'm going to do them one at a time too. Okay, and then now if you've been cleaning off your seams, you can go ahead and serge this down to here, not touching anything above where we just slashed at. Okay, so moving right along, we're gonna go ahead and pin our pockets to the front and also our back pieces. So just working on the front, you wanna go ahead and take one of your pocket bags, and with right sides facing, you want to align it with that center notch. Then also pin at your dots. I didn't make dots, I made notches just so it could be easier for me. Okay. So you want to pin this the same way for the other side, and then also for the two that's on the back, the same exact way. Now we're going to head over to the machine. We're going to stitch starting at the top all the way down using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now for the front, we're going to do some understitching, but for the back, we're just going to press it towards the pocket. Once again, we're using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now you want to do the other 4 the same exact way. And once you do that, we're gonna go ahead and do understitching for the front pieces. Okay, so now when we understitch, you wanna make sure that seam is towards the pocket, towards the right, this way. And then we're just going to stitch close to that seam, but on the pocket side. And make sure you're only doing this to the front pieces. Okay, so you want to do your other front piece the same exact way. Okay, so we're back from the machine, and then now we're just going to take our front and lay it over top of our back, right sides facing, and we're going to stitch along the outside seam. But we're going to keep an opening where our dots are, and like I said, I did notches to indicate my dots. So you want to make sure that is aligned, those seams are touching. I'm going to do around the pocket as well. Okay, so we're going to start at the top, back stitch, and then we're going to reach our dot, back stitch and cut your threads, and then we're going to move down to the other dot, back stitch at the beginning, and go all the way down to the hem. And then after we do that, we're going to go ahead and stitch starting here and go around the pocket, going to our stitching. Okay, and we're going to do all that using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So let's head to the machine. Move on down to the other marking. Okay, now you want to do the other side the same exact way. And then we're just going to close out the pocket bag. Okay, now that you did this side, you want to do the other side the same exact way. Okay, so we went ahead and closed out our outside seam, and you can see the pants forming really well. And then also I went ahead and took my pocket bag and I basted it to the front at the top, okay, just so it can stay in place. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and attach the bodice to the pants. So right side's facing, you want to go ahead and pin them. So you want to find that side seam and make sure you have it right there at the side seam of the bodice. We're just going to pin. So when it comes to how much gather, you want to adjust. Sometimes you might gather too much like I just did. There we go. So we have the bodice facing down and right side's facing. We're going to go to the machine. We're going to stitch, start on one side, going all the way around the back, and then over to the other side using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we're back from the machine. As you can see, I went ahead and serged the bottom just so I can have it clean on the inside like you see here. And then now we're just going to take our 3 elastics and we're just going to put them through the casing. So I'm going to grab me a safety pin and then I'm just going to go through one end and then out the other. Okay, so when you come out the other end, like this, you want to make sure that it's not twisted all the way through. Then also I'm just going to take it and just pin the end real quick so it won't fall back in there. Okay, so once we have it all the way through, you can secure both ends. You want to walk your finger through, make sure there's no twist in it. Now you want to take your other two elastics and do your other 2 rows of casing the same exact way. Okay, so once you get all 3 strips of elastic through the casing, just head to the machine. You just want to tack them down on the ends here. Okay, so do that, come back and we'll continue. We're gonna work on our underlap. Now you should have 2 small dots on one end and then bigger dots on the other end. We're going to turn it right sides facing, pin. Okay, so just head to the machine. We're gonna stitch both ends closed using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Do that, come back and we'll continue. Okay, I'm just gonna trim mine down just a little bit, not too much. Then now turn it right side out. Point out your corners. Okay, so give this a really good press. Okay, so you can base down this end here, that's the opening, and you can finish off that raw edge if you like by using your serger. Okay, as you can see, I went ahead and finished off the bottom of the casing, and then now we're going to go ahead and attach our collar. Now there should be some notches that you should match up with the notches on the neckline, and we're going to pin. Okay, so now you just want to head to the machine and just stitch all the way across using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you can go ahead and finish off that seam and then press it up, and then we'll do top stitching. But go do that, come back and we'll continue. Okay, so now it's time to put the zipper on. I'm going to measure a 1/4 inch down from the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance here. So I'm going to go ahead and match that up and put it in the exact same place. Okay, so that's where I'm going to be putting the top of the zipper stop. And we're going to leave a 1/4 inch of the zipper tape exposed. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pin this in place. Okay, so now that we have this pinned down, we're going to edge stitch right along the fold. Okay, we're back. As you can see, we have a nice stitching across this side here. Now, before we do the other side, we need to go ahead and mark some very key places. Now, as you can see, we have the waist seam here. We have the 3 stitching lines. We have the yoke in the front seam. And then we also have the collar and the yoke seam. All right. So now I'm gonna put a dot just so we can line it up perfectly on the other side. Okay, so I'm just going to place that here and pin. Okay, now we're gonna head to the machine. We're gonna finish stitching across the bottom and then going all the way up. Add stitching along the fold. So we're just going across the bottom now. Take your time across the zipper teeth. Then we're gonna pivot. Okay, so when we place the underlap, we want to make sure that it covers all the way to the bottom. So you want to make sure you put it down there, and we're going to match up that edge with the edge of that seam and not the zipper tape. Okay, so go ahead and pin. Up here, we want to make sure that it extends right where that zipper pull is, 1/4 inch up, and then we're going to pin. Okay, so when I go to the machine, I'm going to fold it over on this side just so I can see. On this side right here, I got a better view. So let's head to the machine. We're going to stitch, starting here, going all the way up. Okay, like I said, I'm not going to be on this side. I want to see what I'm working at. Okay, now I'm going to turn it back right side out. As you can see here, this will be stitched. And then now all you have to do is just top stitch right over that existing stitch that we did along this side here. Okay, so now that we have the underlap attached, we're going to move along to our collar and our front facings. So with the front facings, as you can see, you want to go ahead and stay stitch towards the center front, and then the same on this side. And then at the shoulder, you want to press 5/8 of an inch, and then also here at the bottom, like I did, 5/8 of an inch. All right, so go ahead and give that a good press too. And then now you're going to take your collar, your remaining collar, and we're going to, with right sides facing, there's a notch here and there's a notch there. So we're going to take this notch and put it right there. Making sure that we align it up. Okay. And also too, we can make a couple of slits here just so it can open up. But don't go through your stay stitching stitch. That allows it to spread just a bit. I can pin it a few more times. We're going to do the other side the same exact way. Okay, so now we're going to head to the machine. We're going to stitch all the way across till we get to the edge, and then we're going to do the same thing on this side until we get to the end using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then we're going to press our seams up. Okay, so we're back from the machine. I went ahead and pressed my seams up, and then I pressed the remainder of the seam here on the bottom of the collar. And this is how it looks. So I'm gonna turn it around so you can see it like this. Okay, So now let's grab the jumpsuit, unzip it. All right, so now we're right sides facing. We're going to turn the zipper teeth towards the inside. And then we're going to pin. Now you want to make sure you have that seam somewhat close to that seam on the other side. Okay, and the facing comes all the way down until we get to where the bottom of the casing is. And then now on the other side, turn that zipper in, turn that zipper teeth in. And then now that we have the sides, let's go ahead and pin across the top of the collar. Okay, so now we're just going to head to the machine. We're going to start on one end, stitch all the way, pivot across the top of the collar, and then down the other side to the bottom of the facing here. Okay, so I'm going to trim just a tad bit here, but do not clip your corners. You don't want to do that to the front. I'm just taking a little bit off. Okay, now we're just going to turn this right side out. Now if you want, you can serge along this side right here to make it clean on the inside. But you just want to go ahead and give this a really good press. And I will show you how to finish it up. Okay, so once you give it a good press, this is what it looks like. So let me go ahead and open this up just a bit. So I'll put pins here, over here at the collar, just right here where the seam is, where that fold is. You want to just hand stitch this closed, slip stitch it. And then also you want to do the same thing for the shoulder seam. You want to tack that down on both sides. And then also here at the bottom of the facing, you want to tack this down as well. There's a seam here where you can tack that down as well, where that yoke and front seam is. And you can do a blind stitch if you just want this to be stuck to that, but just make sure you don't catch it on the other side. All right, so that's how you finish off the inside of that. And then last but not least, you want to finish off your hem. Now the hem is 1 1/4 inches, so you can press under a 1/4 inch and then fold an inch and then top stitch that, or you could just finish off the raw edge with a serge and then press under 1 1/4 inches and then top stitch it. And then once you do that, you're all done. All right, congratulations, you're all done. Now, I hope you enjoyed this sew along, and remember to always tag Mimi at Mimi G Style. And if you want to tag me on this particular project, you can tag me at Norris Danta 4, and we will see you in the next sew along.